how soon after, let's say you take your last breath, how soon afterwards do you realize that you have gone into the non-physical?
It's immediate.
Immediate.
But, well, you know something has changed because every concern has lifted and you now have broader view. And you know. In other words, you return to that broader perspective and you know you have. And for many, in that moment, the physical perspective becomes so muted and the broader perspective becomes so vivid that you don't even ask that question because where you are is so dominant that where you've been doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. Sort of like Elsie coming through the cat door. Bam, she's in there. And she's not thinking about where she just came from. She's thinking about where she is.
Okay.
And the cat door springs both ways.
Yeah. Okay, on the heels of that very answer...
Profound answer, yes.
Yes. If indeed, because I feel like there are a lot of people who are able to communicate, I guess is the only word I can come up with people who have transitioned or have croaked.
There are a lot of people who can tap into vibrations, whether they're tapping into the vibration of where their dearly departed has departed to, or whether they're tapping into the thought form from which their dearly departed has departed, is a questionable thing.
Ooh.
Because you have to understand, think about what happens. Think about what you know about creation. You've been listening to us for a while. You get it that thoughts are creative in nature. So imagine a person who has been in a physical body for a number of years, who has been perceiving the world through that framework, and that the world has been perceiving them. And think about the reality that has amassed around that person. And just because they have now reemerged into non-physical doesn't mean that the energy still isn't swirling around that which they have become. Long after you take your physical departure, the vibrational residue of that which you are swirls on. Haven't you ever walked into a room and felt the energy of the party that was there before? What do you think a haunted house is? In other words, it's not a spirit from non-physical lingering. It's the energy swirling around the experience that was last there or was predominantly there. That's why a psychic can tap in to a block of thought. Esther understood it most clearly when Nicole Simpson was murdered, and Esther was flying with Jerry frequently. They were on airplanes, and Esther remembers an early morning flight, so she reclined her seat intending to sleep and began hearing words that later she determined were coming from Nicole Simpson. And it was upsetting to Esther because they weren't happy words. And she said to us, Abraham, you said when somebody dies, they reemerge into pure positive energy. This isn't pure. She's dead, and this isn't pure positive energy that I'm getting. And we said, you're tapping in to the thought forms that have surrounded this. And we said, and by now it was weeks after the murder, and Esther had been reading all of the magazines on the airplane. She'd sort of hooked herself into it by her interest in the subject. So we said, you're not even picking it up only from the thought forms that were present because of the woman and her life itself. You're now picking up on the thought forms of all of the speculation of all of the people that are thinking about all of the subject. In other words, the thing took on a life of its own, and vibration is vibration. There is vibration and there is reality, and there is physical reality and there is non-physical reality. And just because you're tapping into a vibration doesn't mean that you're tapping into precisely what you're tapping into something that's near the vibration of where you are is what you're tapping into. People will have near-death experiences, or they will have out-of-body experiences. A lot of people have regressive experiences where they are having rebirthing experiences, and they will say, oh, in this rebirthing experience, I now understand that in past lives I've had some similar experiences that I'm having now. And we say, well, we don't know if you're getting your past life or someone else's, but one thing is sure, it all matches what your dominant vibration is right now. The law of attraction has no boundaries, physical, non-physical. It's a universal law, you see. And so every thought that's ever been thought still exists. And so to try to sort that all out, it would make you crazy. What we recommend that you do is, in the context of the life that you're living, and in the context of who you really are and who you're letting yourself be, that you find the feeling place as best you can that feels the best, and that let law of attraction match you up with things that equal that. Because when you start trying to sort out frequencies, in the same way that you can't put piles of good manifestations and piles of bad manifestations into any order, you really can't start sorting out vibrations. Every thought that's ever been thought still exists. And law of attraction causes a coalescing of them, you see.
So if indeed, so when somebody has gone back into non-physical, and what you're seeing with a psychic or a medium or somebody saying that they're communicating with that person, they're basically then just tapping into the energy or the vibration and stuff that it...
We're not saying that they never do. They often do. We're just saying, if someone taps in to your dead friend and that dead friend is complaining, they've not tapped into who they really are now.
I got you.
If they're worried about you, if they're fussing about something, then they've tapped into the same old thought form that was swirling around them in their ornery human self, you see. Because when they reemerge into non-physical, they leave behind all doubt and fear and worry, and all, they move quantum leap style into the vibration of who they really are. Think about it. The reason that you have negative emotion at all while you are in your human form is because you're beating the drum of something that the whole of you will not. So if your inner being won't even join you in one negative thought, what do you think the odds are that your inner being's up there worrying about stuff?
Right.
It's totally illogical.
Right.
You see, it isn't happening. It's a human distortion. Not easy to see non-physical through human eyes. In the same way, it's not easy to feel happy when you feel sad. Do you really understand? If you're depressed, do you really understand your happy friend? You're much more likely to resent your happy friend than you are to understand your happy friend. You see?
Right. Absolutely.
So what happened that brought all of these questions about?
I had a friend on Sunday who I applaud the way he decided to exit stage right. He was riding his motorcycle in the mountains and literally just keeled over. Was never sick, never had to worry about anything, just dropped dead. And we were all commenting how beautiful it was. It had such a full, great life doing what he wanted to do, and then all of a sudden, boom, he's gone. And nobody was really sad at the funeral. We were all laughing and carrying on and just remembering the good times. And every time I'm in an experience like that, as far as somebody who's croaked, it always brings up additional questions. And we started talking about whether or not, how long would it be to take for somebody to realize they had actually croaked, and whether or not, when we come forth, do we really have spirit guides? Do we really have people, that energies, or whatever you want to call them, non-physical energies that are kind of hanging out with us? Or is that just false?
Oh, you have huge awareness from non-physical, but here's the way we describe it. Now, we can describe it in the fairy tale fashion you've formerly heard it, or we can, well, there have been a lot of different versions of it, or we can describe it in the context of what we are describing to you here, that you are source energy. You project yourself into this physical experience. You become more because of this physical experience. Your rockets of desire shoot forward. The source within you rides those rockets and literally becomes them and holds that expanded, evolved perspective. So can you imagine the celebration in the coming together of all of that, you see? Now, that broader perspective is joined by the full perspective. In other words, now there's no more tugging against that which you have become. It is really a wonderful experience. If you knew how good the death experience was, you would not worry about it, and you would not give it to those you despise. Keep those buggers alive and make them watch television. That way, they can scour the planet, the huge, powerful planet of vast well-being, and they can focus in on pockets of distortion and disallowance of well-being, and they can dramatize it and exaggerate it in enormous proportion and create within themselves a huge imbalance. It's as bad as it gets. It's as bad as it gets. As bad as it gets is to be physically focused and not look at life through the eyes of broader perspective. That's as bad as it gets. And when you croak, you can't do that.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yes?
What's up, Abraham? Okay, I have a question which I think is about what I'm calling is a mixture of energies. You've talked about how there's one stream for a person, and if I understand it right, there's one stream, and everything that you want is at the end of that one stream, is downstream.
Not necessarily at the end of it, just downstream from where you are.
Okay.
You're floating to it and through it and into it, and always projecting more ahead of you.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Sometimes you're rowing this way and you miss it. But it's always there and always available when you get into the right vibration.
Right.
It's like Esther, I can't find my pen, I can't find my pen, I can't find my beautiful pen, I can't find my beautiful pen. It's in her purse, but she cannot find it. And it seems illogical that even when she dumps her purse out on the bed, that the pen could find a little corner to snag in. Because you can't find what's lost.
So you've also talked about people who are very wealthy but don't have their whole life in order. So they may